All right, welcome back to another episode of the Tim and Tim Show. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we do this Facebook live stream from StreamYard, and we get on and we talk about real stuff. We talk about real events. We talk about real problems. We talk about deal structures. We talk about wins, losses, things we've learned. There's nothing that we won't cover on this weekly podcast. This past 2 months has been difficult with Tim and I both traveling a lot and had a lot of personal reasons that we were out of the office. So I'm glad to be back doing another show this week, and I'm ready to get right into it. How are you feeling today, Tim?
I can't complain.
Yeah.
Staying consistent.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right. So this week, what we're talking about is like why 90% of general partnerships die, right? Why do they end in disaster? And I think I'm going to call, it's a little ironic, right? We're two business partners sitting here talking about why business partners can be your number one mistake. But we'll also talk about why it can be one of your biggest benefits. I think for context, I think it is more specifically this conversation targeted around people that do deals together that are not like a formal business as co-GPs, not as traditional business partners in that sense that you would, I guess that you could assume, right? Like Tim and I, we're business partners. We own Vive Equity, Vive Property Management. We own it 50-50. We make decisions together. We do all of that kind of stuff, right? It's when you start getting into these multifamily or self-storage or commercial real estate assets, whatever your deal is, and you have 4, 5, 6 different people that are co-GPs in a deal that can be decision makers in some way, shape, or form, right? So yeah, we're talking about it because I feel like it's something that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, and I'm going to talk about the benefit that it causes for us right now as well. We have had our fair share of difficulties with general partners. We no longer do deals with those general partners. But in full disclosure, that's how Tim and I became partners. I mean, what did we do? Like $100 million worth of real estate acquisitions before we started Vive Equity?
Yeah, at least.
Something like that. Like I operated under Upside Capital. He operated under Harvest Partners or Harvest Property Group, or whatever, his Harvest entity. And we still have those entities today, right, for our own like personal businesses and stuff like that. But the way that we operate now and going forward for the last couple of years has been we do all the money that we raise, all the deals that we sign, all the work that we do, everything goes into Vive Equity, and we just split it 50-50. And there's pros and cons to it, and there's always going to be difficulties in any relationship, I guess I'll say that. But with one of the major things with the co-GP structures, like back in 2021, 22, 23, it was the honeymoon phase, right? Like debt was cheap, deals were transacting, like you could buy something and hold it for a year or two and turn around and sell it. And like, if you didn't like those partners, it didn't really matter that much that way anyways, because you made money, right? And everybody was making money and it was great. And everything was hunky dory. There's no stress on the partnership, right? We don't really start to see the stress in the partnership until things start actually going wrong.
I will give you one. See how to do this diplomatically. Thinking out loud, I'll give you one caveat to that. I will say that I was in a partnership. We had some deals going on, and things were good. In fact, things were selling for profits. We were not losing money on deals. But I saw some things through the sales process with the negotiation tactics that kind of had me rethinking a partnership. Because it was just like an aha moment for me of I don't really like these negotiation tactics. I don't like the way this is going forward. And it was putting some stress on some broker relationships that I had built at the time. So that's maybe the one caveat, because I do agree with you. When everybody's making money, man, everybody overlooks a lot of things.
Everyone overlooks a lot when things are good.
Yeah, I I like to think, I'll just say personally, I think I like to think that I try to keep a long-term view on most things. And in that case, long term, I was like, this is not going to be good long term. Um, this is not going to create a good reputation in the area, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And for what it's worth, I think that looking forward into that type of stuff is important, but
yeah,
it's also trying to make the decision of, is that the person, is that somebody I want to be associated with,
right,
right? Is that
right,
is that the representation that I want to be known as?
yeah,
That this is the way that they do deals. This is the way that they negotiate. Like if you're going to negotiate with that, like the multifamily industry in the Carolinas is pretty small,
yeah,
and there's a handful of folks that are on our do not buy from list, right? And we don't want to be those people that
yeah.
are on other people's do not buy list because of the way that we handled a transaction or interaction or a relationship in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and so I think a good way to sum that up, because I think you said it kind of well there. A good way to sum that up is, you know, I'm not going to dog you for the way you do business, just not the way I want to do business.
That's the best way to say is like
Yeah,
I respect however you want to run your business, but that's not how I envision myself running my business, and I don't want to be associated with that, and
yeah,
that's
because that,
fine.
yeah, because I will say, to that person's credit, it was highly effective for that transaction.
Yeah,
Um,
and it can be, right? And
yeah,
then I'm not saying that it's not successful in a lot of different transactions. It's
right,
just not how I like to be represented, right? It's not how I want to be associated as.
right, yeah, but yeah, man, I think what, to your point, the kind of the track you were going here is, since what, 23 maybe, over the last 2.5 years, you're
Yeah,
starting to see, you're not starting, you are seeing a lot of those kind of like honeymoon phases come to an end, right?
yeah,
Things are hard. Things are hard. They require work. Deals that you thought you'd be in for 2 years, it's looking more like 5 to 7. Um, and I don't know where you want to go with it, because I think one of the things I would say is you're seeing a lot of partners disappear.
yeah.
Um, not
Well, I
even
guess
not even full breakups, just disappear.
that's I guess it's you can go both ways there,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's you either have one or the other. You either have people that just stop showing up and stop
right,
caring,
right.
and miraculously at the very finish line they have an opinion again. I know that one
Ah,
touched a nerve.
ow!
Oh, cringe. Or what you have is where you just can't, where people end up just selling a deal or breaking up the transaction as a whole because they can't do business together anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and it creates a lot of opportunity for you and I, right? I mean, we talk with a lot of brokers now, and I think there are two reasons why people are selling deals right now. One, they have to because they can't refinance, right? Because they're underwater. Or two, their partnership is breaking up. Number one and number two answers what we get from brokers right now of why property is for sale.
Yeah,
They have to get out or they want to get out because they can't stand each other anymore.
yeah, yeah,
And it's just so important, right, that you're doing business with people that you align with, because you're going to be in business with them for many years. And like on paper, 5 years doesn't sound that long, but in reality, 5 years is plenty long.
yeah,
A lot can go wrong or go right in 5 years. I think what causes a lot of that tension between partnerships is just unbalanced workload, right? Like when everything's good and rents are going up and debt's cheap and there's a ton of cash flow, like it's fine. Like it's not that highly scrutinized. But when things are tight and they're difficult and expenses are going up and rents are going down and debt is going up and cash flow is limited and it's all over the place and you have to watch things with a big microscope, that's when people get upset, because it's like, the people that should care don't,
yeah,
or that don't care enough. And a lot of the inexperienced folks don't understand why they should pay more attention or why they should care more about XYZ things,
yeah.
right? I mean, we've seen every example of that, right? Of people, well, what's the big deal? It's only $1,000 every month, right? And it's like, well, It's like it's not that big of a deal. Or this marketing, the Zillow marketing plan or apartments.com, it's only $500 a month. And it's like, okay, but has anybody done an analysis on this to understand we're spending $500 a month, but how many leads are we actually getting from it? Is this
Right.
good money to spend or bad money to spend? And you
Yeah.
have to go through those expenses and think about those things critically. And some people just don't want to do that. I mean, it's kind of uh in the capital raising world, there's a ton of people that just kind of raised money on people's deals and then poof,
Yeah.
vanished, right?
Yeah.
Never to be seen again. Um, but then you have the operators like Tim and I, and we have really dug into the trenches. We opened up the property management company. Like we have 30 something employees at this point, and our perspective and our attention span on each deal can look different now depending on what each deal needs individually, and
Yeah.
that gives us a lot of it gives our deals a lot of strength, right? Because we can focus the energy where it needs to be focused the most, instead of just trying to carte blanche everything at the end of the day. But where people start to get upset is like, well, they start taking on additional roles because the other person's not pulling their weight.
Right.
And that's actually something that I said, like we did our team meeting, was it 2 weeks ago now, where we got everybody together in Charlotte. And that was like how I kind of opened up the meeting with, all of our key decision makers sitting at one table. We went through our KPI spreadsheet. We went through every property's tracker, like where we were in October, December, last time we met, where we are today. And I finished it off by saying, everyone at this table is pulling their weight. And I can't thank you enough for doing that, because if everybody didn't pull their weight, we would not be in the position that we are today. And
Yeah.
the problem that you have, I mean, pros and cons, right? Like, so obviously a lot of the people that were at the table, they work for you and I, right? So there's one thing, right? And I think that conversation gets even more difficult when you're in a co-GP setting and you're talking with people that have a vested interest in a deal to make money, but they don't have anything to lose. And the conversation is different when you don't have any skin in the game. And you could say that somebody that works for us has skin in the game because they want to continue getting a paycheck, right? But on the flip side, when you're talking about a co-GP setup, you want that person to have skin in the game, whether it's mom and dad's money, whether it's their own money, whether they're on the debt. They have some responsibility that could negatively impact them if the deal does not succeed, right? Those are the people that you want sitting at the table because you know that they have a vested interest to do the deal and do it well.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of guided some people in the past on this because I think there's one example that comes to mind for me is Tim. You and I know some guys that were thinking about creating a partnership, and it's always personal to me because I end up being like boots on the ground a lot, right? And this guy was going to be boots on the ground, and he's talking to me, and I'm like, man, do not sell yourself short. I was like, I promise you, I've been there, and you're going to be the guy they call on Saturday at 2 p.m. when you're sitting somewhere with your family thinking you're having a nice Saturday and some shit has gone wrong on a property and you're the boots on the ground guy. You're the only guy within 30 minutes. They're going to call you and expect you to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that's cool. Just make sure for that expectation, there's an understanding of what that costs the team in terms of your equity.
Right.
And to your point, I think setting that expectation early is good. And then, by the way, it can be a red flag too, right? Like when you go, hey, I'm the guy you guys are calling, right?
Yeah.
You're 6 hours away. If you're not hopping on a plane to handle that emergency situation and you expect me to, then I expect to be compensated for that. And if they balk on it, I'm not saying if they disagree with how much you think it is, that's a conversation, right? But if they balk on that concept at all, there's your first red flag, right?
Yeah, right. They don't value you as an individual or a partner, in my opinion.
So I think that's a big thing. One of the personal lessons for me, we're talking about real world examples. Guys, I had a situation one time where, I'm shit hit the fan with a GC, and I had to go get a property ready for some tenants that were moving in, like literally 24 next day. Yeah.
Yeah. The next morning.
Yeah. I think it was like noon the next day. And the GC walked by design. He had planned it that way. And, I'm literally there working on this property to get it ready. And guys, my partner was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
um, and those are things that kind of like teach you lessons, right?
Hmm. Battle
Because
scars.
yeah, because what you want is that partner. What you want is that partner. Even if you're like, no, I got it. You at least want the guy that's going to call and be like, hey, man, I'm ready. Just say the word. I,
Right.
I'll hop on a plane. I'll get in my truck. Whatever. I'm headed. Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Right. The effort.
that's yeah. Just
Effort, effort and intention go a long way.
100%. Um, and I think you're seeing a lot of that right now because a lot of things aren't going well. I think the other thing, like you said, that you're seeing with a lot of folks is in these deals where what'd you mention? It's only $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Like we've seen that where a deal needs a little money to keep moving, right? Um, and you literally have partners going, it's just $1,000, you cover it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Mm.
Yeah. And guys, these are all things that Tim and I have seen said by partners, right? Like we're not just making stuff up here. These are things that
Nothing's
have actually
hypothetical in this conversation.
no, this conversation, these examples we're throwing out, these are things that have actually happened, and where my head goes, Tim, I'd be kind of curious what you say is when a partner says to you, it's only $1,000, you cover it. Like I look at them and go, yeah, it's only $1,000. So pay your half.
Right. Right. Pay
You know?
your share. Right.
If it's only $1,000 and that's how you feel about it, it's really not that big a deal. So pay your half.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that much money, really, especially for some people. And it's like when you getting blood from a stone, I'll tell you, man.
I've always found that one interesting, right? The thought of,
Particularly interesting.
yeah, it's not that bad, so you should just handle it. Well, if it's not that bad, you handle it.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, exactly. You can very easily turn that same sentence and throw it back in their face.
I'm proposing that we share in it. So,
Right. And so obviously, I guess the deal breaker on a lot of those decisions and things are what's the operating agreement say?
100%. Yep.
That I think that's a good place to take the conversation now is that I'll say myself included, I have to go back and reference the operating agreement because they
Yeah.
can all be structured a little bit differently and they're all worded a little bit differently. But it is vitally important to understand, where does the buck stop?
Yeah.
What are people's responsibilities? How do you have people removed from a deal?
Yeah.
Because you don't want the dead weight just doing nothing. Uh, how do you have to think very strategically about who owns what and how much of it.
Right.
Because who owns the role in the task and the job and how much compensation do they get for it? And who's got the most in the deal and who has the most to lose? And you want that person to be the ultimate decision maker. And Tim and I have learned through
Yeah.
many, many partnerships that you and I always are the ones that have the most to lose. We raise the most amount of money. We sign on the debt. We have the earnest money put up in the deal where we could lose it. We have our reputation with the brokers and other sellers and in transactional folks in the deal, attorneys, everybody. You and I always have the most amount of lose in every single deal that we do.
Right.
Do other people have things to lose? Yes. But when you talk about reputation, credit, investor cash, your own personal investments, all of that, you have all of that in a single deal, in every single deal. We have the most amount of money to lose. And I shouldn't say money. We have the most to lose, right? Because there's a lot of different factors there at the end of the day. And that's why you and I, or Vive Equity as a whole, we end up having the decision say in every deal that we do because we operate it, we raise the money on it, we sign the debt, and we need that level of control because we have the most interest that this deal is at least a break even at a minimum, or making profit is the ideal right outcome. But at a minimum, we have to make sure that it breaks even, and we have the decision power and decision making ability to change course and pivot where necessary to ensure that we don't lose anybody's money. And to date, we have never lost anybody's money. And a lot of that, I thank I know. I put a lot of that up as to the way that we've structured a lot of these deals where that gives us the decision-making power. We're the owner operators. We're not just some syndicators that, hire a third-party management to run our deals and we go find another deal and raise more money and do asset management. No, like, we're reviewing leases, we're reviewing
Yeah.
CapEx, we're making sure the turn costs are good. Like every Friday, I spend 2.5 hours reviewing AP. I know every single bill that goes out the door for every single property that we own and manage. Nobody has a tighter control and understanding of what's going on at our properties more than you and I do. Now, there are some people in our team that even have a different level of understanding because that's their job and their role in the
Yeah.
organization. But when we talk about co-GP structures, you and I, that's where the buck stops, right? And if anything ever happens to you and I, or you or I, Vive Equity is still in existence and nothing changes the operating agreement, right? So
Right.
there's a level of protection there, not only for you, for ourselves, but also for our investors and everybody that's associated to the deal that, we don't, if something happens, nothing really changes, right? At the end of the day, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys, that's how we structure our deals. And it's good to have that understanding, but where the operating agreement really, really, really comes into play is when you're starting to have those like head-butting conversations of like, what should I do? Who should do this? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. At some point, you can just stop and go, hey, let's not debate this. Let's just pull up the operating agreement and go see exactly what it tells us we have to do.
Right.
And I'm not gonna lie. Like sometimes you got guys that'll look at you and be like, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. And it's just, but to Tim, that's the response. I mean, what he just
Yeah.
said, it's like, okay. But this is what it's legally, contractually, this is what you're obligated to do. So
Right.
how do you want to handle that?
Right.
It's like,
Right. Right.
okay. But
You can
guys,
either
like,
do what it says, here's your signature right here, or
yeah.
you can expect a lawsuit. Which would you like?
Yeah, and the lawsuit, I mean, nobody wants to go there, but
No.
what it at least does is it removes that kind of like Tim and I sitting here debating with each other about
Yeah.
what needs to happen, right?
Is a good
Um,
word to use there, like ambiguity.
yeah, it removes the ambiguity. It
Right.
definitely says, here's what you were supposed to do,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and I've had this conversation with a million people. I mean,
Yeah.
not really, but at least 30. Um, and they're always like, oh, that's why you got to have a good operating agreement in place. And I've even said to them, I'm like, yeah, that's great until you end up in a lawsuit, right? But
Mhm.
at least at the end of the day, you've got that there to
Yeah.
say this is what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and the operating agreement always defines, like, what the major events are, you know?
right.
And there's no, like, well, there's no emotional factor behind a major event. I
No.
mean, there can be, right? But the decision behind the major event is laid out very clearly on who is the final say,
Right.
who has the ultimate, yes, no, maybe, situation, right? I can't stress enough, like, how actually important the operating agreement is. And that's why we use the same attorney every single time, because we know how they're structured.
Yep.
And we still have to review the operating agreement every single time because it
Yeah.
does fluctuate a little bit for some
Right.
amazing reason. But at the end of the day, like, we understand the structure, we understand what our rights are, we understand generally how things are set up and
Right.
where to look, like, so that takes out a level of difficulty, right? Because it's the same every single time in the most part. But I just having that piece of paper that tells you the mechanics and the rights around all the decisions and the provisions and around all of that kind of stuff. Why do you guys get a lawsuit? Well, we didn't get a lawsuit. I'm just saying, like, people can sue each other for not following the operating agreement, essentially.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so okay. And kind of where I want to go off last with this is, like, how should you partner with people, right? Because there's still 10% of partnerships that don't end in disaster. How should you partner with people? And I think the only way that I would say that is, like, you have to really know the person that you're doing business with, and the less people involved in a deal, the better, right? If you can do a deal with 2 or 3 people, and you have, the major decision maker being the person that is, the KP,
Yeah.
the sponsor, et cetera, and so forth, it takes a lot of tension out of the deal, right? Because there's not that many, finger pointing abilities and, opinions, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing. Structuring your partnership with, how Tim and I have done it, like we own it 50-50, right? So we we have a vested interest to make sure that the deals are successful and that our business is successful. And everything that we do just goes right into the same bucket, right? Everything goes
Yep.
into the same bucket. We split it. Every person, each of us bring value in different ways. And I would say that I couldn't bring success to our business if I didn't have you to do what you're good at, and vice versa, right? And it always looks a little different every year. I mean, there were some years where you were on site all the time doing
Yeah.
work for the business, and there's times when there's not, right? And but like because you had the support, it enables you to be able to do those types of things, right? And you just have to have an understanding of, hey, everything goes into the business, and then we figure out what are we going to take out of the business later, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well said. And I think that's one of the things people have to keep in mind, right? Is like work ebbs and flows. Um,
Yeah,
right. And just because you're busting your ass right now doesn't mean that your partner is not going to be busting their ass some other time. Right.
right,
I
right.
I think it's always good to make sure that you have a good understanding of that.
Hmm.
Um, because like what Tim and I are talking about in our example is, if we have a heavy renovation going on, I'm probably going to be there a lot.
Yeah,
And there may be a 6 month window, 3 month window, whatever it is, where I'm pulling, 50 hours a week on site, not to mention office work. Right. And, and maybe Tim's working 40, right. That kind of thing. But then there's other times like shit. I mean, December and January.
oh god,
Uh,
no, tax
yeah.
season, Jesus.
Yeah. Hey
Oh
guys, full disclosure, like I just start to see K1 show up,
yeah, I
and
just take that.
and hey, I fully recognize the work that goes into that.
Yeah, that's a beast of a project. I mean,
Yeah,
that takes me like 4 months
yeah,
every year. I mean, the
yeah,
worst of it is definitely January and February. That's absolutely
yeah.
the worst of it. But I mean, the bulk of it between answering investors, answering the
Oh,
CPA, working with our accounting team. I mean, I'm kind of coordinating all of that. It takes 4 months. I mean, hell, just this weekend or yesterday or whatever it
yeah.
was, we had another thing that popped up about K1s or
Two,
two
two
things
things.
that popped up about K1s, and it's like it never really fully goes away.
No, no. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I was just about to say that. Here we are, almost the end of July, and two things in the last 24 hours came through about K1s.
about
Uh,
K1s, yeah.
yeah,
Oh man. Oh, but fun times, right?
yeah.
But yeah,
But
in terms of like co-GPs and things like that, I think I don't have any good advice for you on how to figure out who good co-GPs are. I think it's a learning lesson. It's something that takes time. You have to be
yeah,
willing to take a risk and work with different people, and also have an understanding of when to
yeah.
draw a line and say enough's enough. I think it's something. There's no words of wisdom that anybody could tell you that's going to be a silver bullet on how to pick the perfect co-GP setup, right? It just
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't tell you I mean, I'm with you. I can't tell you how to pick the perfect. I can tell you how to avoid some bad ones.
yeah,
And yeah, and
there's always going to be something you haven't seen before.
well, right, exactly. But you know what? I mean, just some of it's common sense, but man, how many times, Tim, have we seen it? Like Tim and I used to chuckle, right? Like how many people would go to these multifamily events for like 48 hours and walk out of there with like three people they've met and maybe had drinks with, and they're like, "We're going to do a deal together." And
Yeah, yeah.
it's like really like
Hmm. We're
over
going to buy your deal 2 years from now because you can't stand each other.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But so like don't do that. I guess the only piece of advice I would give is like maybe date for a little while first. Um
Hmm.
have drinks, go to a couple of things together,
But yeah,
go
I
to
mean, for
dinner,
you and I
talk.
mean, for context, I think you and I knew each other for what, 9 or 10 months, almost the better part of a year
Mhm.
before we did our first deal together.
Yeah.
Something,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And then going into our first deal, I mean, we weren't equal partners,
Mhm.
and no, we weren't equal partners. You were, I think, well, you were supposed to be. He was supposed to be, guys, largely passive in that deal. He did some stuff going into the deal. Tim did some things going into the deal with like underwriting and helped structure it. And that was supposed to be his piece, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
Oh,
but to his
back to what we
to his
started talking about, where people, you start
yeah.
taking on things that were not
Was
originally your task.
But man, you see some of that, right? Like, I mean, that was one of the reasons, right? Like one of the partners that was supposed to be very active wasn't,
Was
ended
not.
up not being, and
Right.
Vitali stepped in.
Right. Somebody had to
Vi
do the work.
Yeah, Vitali stepped
Right.
in because some of that was like in the accounting space,
Mm-hmm.
and Vitali does accounting stuff. So, I was like, man, I need some help with this, and he stepped in.
Yeah.
And it's like doing things like that together when you're not, just linked at the hip. You start to see things there, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
I think people put so much emphasis on, well, you own more than I do, or this, that. Like, I'm not going to work as hard as you do. Like, I
right,
think that all of that needs to be tossed out the window, because you have to be able to put all of that aside and say,
right,
what is the greater good we're trying to accomplish, and what needs to happen in order for that to happen? And then you can look back and say, okay, who didn't pull their weight? And I don't want to do business with you anymore because I had
right.
to pull your weight and not get paid for it. But we still were successful on the deal, which is great.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not doing that again, because I now have that experience of, what that looks like, and, your self-worth and all that other kind
Yeah,
of
man,
stuff.
that's a really good point, man. Because I think one of the biggest lessons there, is, hopefully you have the idea of, hey, even if this isn't working, even if we don't like each other, that's not an excuse to just throw your hands up in the air and be like, I'm
And
done.
walk away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm done. Right?
Yep.
You got to see it through. You're
Yep.
welcome to break up at the end, but not in the middle of the deal.
Right, exactly. And I think we see that too much. And that's
Agreed.
ultimately what we're talking about, of like why brokers are saying, well, this partnership is just
Yeah.
dissolving or breaking up, and that's why
Right.
they're selling the deal.
Right.
Cool. All right.
Good.
So we're gonna lowball you then, right? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hope you got some insights from this call, and maybe you do some self-reflecting on some of your own partnerships that you're in. But appreciate everybody who joins, if you're watching it live or you're watching it later. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Peace out, guys. See ya.
Did you say peace out?
I did.
Oh.